Russia is in the midst of a great upheaval. From Rostov to St. Petersburg, people are no longer afraid. As their cities burn, they point toward Moscow, crying out in desperation, "Strike the Kremlin!" Meanwhile, inside the Kremlin itself, those who once swore loyalty to Putin are engaged in corruption, bleeding his war effort dry. Russians turn against Putin, from Rostov to St. Petersburg, directing Ukraine to attack the Kremlin. Something unprecedented in modern Russian history is unfolding. From Rostov to St. Petersburg, Russian citizens are no longer afraid to speak out amid the smoke and flames. Strike the Kremlin. These words, echoing through the ruins of a city attacked by Ukrainian UAVs, have become a symbol of the rising fury within Russia. On the night of October 21st, the city of Bataisk in Rostov Oblast, just dozens of kilometers from the Ukrainian border, was hit by UAV strikes, leaving dozens of homes and cars in ruins. But public discourse wasn't focused on the explosions. It was about the reaction of local residents. In videos spreading across social media, Bataisk residents showed no fear. They shouted in fury, "The Kremlin isn't here! You've got the wrong place! Strike the Kremlin!" From a logistics hub for the invasion of Ukraine, Rostov has transformed into a front of resistance, where Putin's war has turned to bite its own master. Amid the rubble, people curse the president they once supported. And in that moment, the unthinkable occurred, a call for Ukraine to attack the heart of Russian power, coming from within Russia itself. On October 16th, in the central square of St. Petersburg, 18-year-old singer Diana Loganova began to sing, "When the Tsar dies, we will dance again," an absolutely banned anti-war song and a public challenge to Putin's regime. 3 days later, Diana was arrested for discrediting the Russian military and organizing illegal gatherings, facing up to 12 years in prison. But instead of extinguishing the flame, the arrest ignited a wave of resistance. Hundreds of young people in St. Petersburg took to the streets, singing the banned song, carrying signs reading "Freedom for Naoko," Diana's stage name. They sang in cafes, in subway stations, in squares at night, believing music could awaken the conscience of a nation sleeping under the shadow of dictatorship. When street performers like Yevgeny Mikhailov continued performing despite knowing they'd be arrested, he simply said, "Their case makes me want to sing louder." Shortly after, he was sentenced to 15 days in prison. But what the authorities cannot control is that these songs now echo across Russia, from Moscow to Kazan, from university dormitories to small roadside cafes. "Freedom for Naoko" graffiti sprout on walls, overpasses, train stations. A musical uprising is spreading, not through bombs and bullets, but through song. This is not just an artistic movement, it's a verdict on Putin, the man who created a Russia that knows only war and fear. And now, the younger generation, those who have never known any leader other than Putin, are asking, why must we live our entire lives in war? While civilians rise up in the streets, inside the Kremlin itself, those who once swore loyalty to Putin are quietly betraying him. They're not shooting at Putin, they're gutting his war effort. A prime example is Dmitry Patrushev, Deputy Prime Minister of Russia and son of Nikolai Patrushev, former FSB director and Putin's closest ally since their KGB days. Under Dmitry, Russia's Ministry of Agriculture became a massive money laundering center, where billions of war budget dollars were embezzled through ghost projects. A phantom plant worth $150 million was approved. The money vanished into villas and private jets in Turkey. FSB investigations were quickly shut down because they touched the untouchable layer, the Leningrad Chekists, those controlling government, security, and military. While soldiers die at the front from lack of ammunition, Putin's comrades buy yachts and Cyprus citizenship. This is no longer mere corruption, it's systematic betrayal. Every dollar stolen is a bullet not fired. Every fake contract is a life lost at the front. While Putin calls for total war, those closest to him are carving up pieces of the defense budget to buy their escape routes. They know Russia is losing. They're not investing in victory, they're investing in their final escape. From Bataisk to St. Petersburg, from Diana Loganova's songs to budget embezzlement cases, Russia is witnessing two parallel uprisings, one from the people and one from within the power structure itself. Putin can control the press, prisons, and military, but he cannot control the fear in the minds of his inner circle, nor the songs of young people who are no longer afraid. Russia will disappear when the Ukrainian sun rises high. 3 decades after his fall, the prophecy of Johar Dudayev, the first president of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, still resonates. When the Ukrainian sun rises high, Russia will disappear. The first part has come true. From Crimea in 2014 to the full-scale invasion in 2022. But the soul of the prophecy lies in what follows. Russia will not be destroyed by the West, but will collapse from within due to its inherent lies. Born in exile under Stalin, Johar Dudayev rose to become a Soviet Air Force general, something almost unimaginable for a Chechen. In 1991, he led the Republic of Ichkeria in declaring independence. Moscow refused to accept it. War broke out. In 1996, Dudayev was assassinated by a guided missile after his satellite signal was tracked. Before his death, he left 2 prophecies. Russia will reinvade neighboring nations, first Ukraine, then the Baltics. Russia's collapse will stem from lies within its own system, not from external enemies. Dudayev never knew Putin, but he accurately described the type of military security leadership that would attempt to rebuild an empire through iron and blood. 2014, Crimea annexed, Donbass ablaze. 2022, Russia launches a full-scale invasion, throwing its entire economy, population, and future into a power adventure. However, territorial victory is merely propaganda cosmetics. The longer it drags on, the more the war exposes structural flaws, systemic corruption, patchwork defense industry, forced mobilization, a society bound by fear. When lies become the oxygen of politics, the state transforms into a total propaganda machine. Casualty figures, phantom victories, fake stability. In a multi-ethnic federation, when trust collapses, only propaganda tubes and police remain to hold together a rotting system. Dudayev spoke not of a nation's death, but of truth's return. Every empire feeds itself on violence and lies, and dies from lies first. The Ukrainian sun rising high is not just a metaphor for victory, but a symbol of a new order, where freedom and rule of law slam shut the gates of empire.
After 12 years of waiting, Ukraine can now destroy the Kerch Bridge and reclaim Crimea. 12 years ago, when Crimea was seized, Ukraine lost not just territory, but also the belief that they could strike back. But in 2025, history changed course. Kiev is no longer passive. They struck at Russia's symbol of power, the Kerch Bridge, using a weapon they invented themselves, the Sea Baby unmanned boat. On October 22, 2025, Ukraine's Security Service, SBU, publicly revealed a previously secret weapon, calling it the Child of the Sea, Sea Baby, a symbol of the revolution in Black Sea warfare. From an experimental project, Sea Baby became a primary weapon that made Russia lose control of Crimean waters for the first time. According to the SBU, Sea Baby is a long-range attack unmanned boat capable of traveling over 1,500 kilometers, carrying up to 2 tons of explosives, and self-destructing if detected to protect its technology. A boost engine system, inertial navigation, and radar avoidance capabilities allow it to slip through the dense defense network that Moscow once proudly called impenetrable. General Ivan Hunter Lukashevich, commander of the Kerch operation, stated simply, "Sea Baby delivered a massive explosive charge precisely to the main pillar of the bridge. Russia can no longer consider the Black Sea a safe zone." According to him, each returning Sea Baby bears bullet marks on its hull, but none have been captured alive. If they cannot return, they self-destruct underwater. This is the will to freedom, programmed into metal. At 4 a.m. on June 3, 2025, 2 Sea Babies departed from the Odessa coast, racing hundreds of kilometers across the Black Sea at extreme speed, nearly invisible to radar. This was the 3rd strike on the Kerch Bridge since 2022, but the most devastating, as it hit the foundation that Russia believed Ukraine couldn't reach. To achieve this strike, Ukraine prepared in silence for 12 years. From early 2024, Kiev began a strategy of blinding Crimea, systematically attacking the chain of radar, air defense, logistics links of Russia. January 2024, raided radar command base, destroying 3 aircraft and a command bunker. May 2024, demolished the 92 N6E radar of the S-400 system, paralyzing main launch platforms. June 2024, destroyed 2 more S-400 batteries, the Nebo-M early warning radar, and the Belbek command station. As Russia's radar network weakened, ATESH guerrillas infiltrated deep into the peninsula, recording coordinates of every target, from Podlit, Pansir S-1 to supply depots. Podlit, the low-altitude eye of the S-300/S-400 system, when destroyed, left the entire air defense network blind. Next, Ukraine deployed the long-range UAV Rubaka, a drone costing only $15,000 but capable of flying 500 kilometers, bypassing GPS jamming using image sensors. Rubaka destroyed remaining radar stations, paving the way for the final blow. On September 22, 2025, Kiev launched the Lights Out Crimea campaign. Drones and Neptune missiles struck Rozdolna, Donskoye, Vitina, destroying radar stations, command facilities, and supply depots. One day later, HUR Special Forces raided Kacha base, destroying 2 BE-12 seaplanes, Russia's last eyes for maritime surveillance around Sevastopol. When Crimea's air defense system was blinded, muted, and paralyzed, Sea Baby received the order to advance. And on the night of June 3rd, the Child of the Sea completed its historic mission, bringing the flame of resistance back to the heart of the occupier. The emergence of Sea Baby and Rubaka isn't just weapon improvement, but a revolution in warfare thinking. Russia, with its classical doctrine relying on tanks and artillery, cannot cope with drone warfare, where a weapon costing tens of thousands of dollars can destroy infrastructure worth hundreds of millions. Within 24 hours after Kerch, Russia attempted to retaliate with artillery and kamikaze UAVs, but all counterstrikes were intercepted or missed their targets. The Black Sea, once Russia's backyard, is now Ukraine's technological stage, where every wave can hide a Sea Baby ready to strike any symbol of occupation. June 3, 2025 will be remembered as the moment Ukraine broke the chains of 12 years. When the Kerch Bridge shook, Crimea was no longer an impregnable fortress. The bridge, a symbol of Russian control, became a symbol of empire's fragility. Sea Baby, the Child of the Sea, is not just a weapon. It's a declaration of intelligence, patience, and the yearning for freedom. Each explosion at the foot of the Kerch Bridge doesn't just destroy steel and concrete, but tears apart Russia's myth of invincibility. Human wave tactics fail. Russian soldiers surrender at Pokrovsk, Donetsk, eastern Ukraine. Amid mud and smoke, a blue and yellow flag flies over the ruins of Kucheriv Yar. This is not just the victory of a small village, but a deadly blow to Russia's human wave tactics. The same ones that spread terror in Bakhmut now collapsed at Pokrovsk. According to frontline sources, Ukrainian forces gained complete control of Kucheriv Yar after more than a month of siege. Kiev command ordered the final assault after determining the enemy had exhausted ammunition, food, and morale. Russia attempted to drop supplies by drone. Futile. When Ukrainian units closed in, dozens of Russian soldiers surrendered en masse, images captured by UAVs spreading rapidly on social media. Observer Noel reports confirmed. Kucheriv Yar has been liberated. This is both a symbolic and tactical victory. Simultaneously, the Mykolaiv 33 Analysis Center released a new battle map. The Blue Zone, Ukrainian-controlled territory, is clearly expanding. Within 24 hours, defense forces pushed deep eastward, driving Russian forces from Zolote Kolodyasy, blocking all attempts to re-establish defensive lines. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russia's offensive attempts on the southern industrial zone completely failed. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones showed long lines of Russian soldiers scattered by artillery, many units fleeing, some surrendering in desperation. A Ukrainian frontline officer observed, "Russia is repeating the Bakhmut tactics, throwing people into the meat grinder. But this time, it's even less effective. On the ground, precision artillery and FPV verses turn every Russian advance into disaster." At Malotokmachka and Robotine, over 30 armored vehicles were destroyed in just 24 hours. Ukrainian drones hit each target in open terrain, with no forest or fortifications for cover. Result: an entire mechanized battalion was completely wiped out. Blackened steel wreckage scattered around Pokrovsk. According to analysts, the failure at Pokrovsk is the clearest evidence of the obsolescence of human wave tactics in the era of high-tech warfare. Ukraine's drone systems, long-range artillery, and real-time reconnaissance have destroyed the World War II-style combat model that Russia blindly maintains. No more heroic achievements, no more relentless advance. Only armies pushed to their deaths to buy a few hundred meters of ground. Videos from the battlefield show Russian soldiers no longer fighting, but walking in desperation, not knowing who they're fighting for. The success at Kucherov Yar comes not just from spirit, but from a silent yet fierce military revolution. Ukraine is redefining modern warfare, transforming civilian technology into precision, lethal weapons. FPV drones costing a few $100s now defeat T-90 tanks worth millions. Digitized command systems allow frontline commanders to receive live UAV imagery and make instant decisions. Ukrainian units use tactical AI, autonomous attack UGVs, and battlefield Starlink, creating a decentralized combat ecosystem, something unprecedented in history. Polish military observer Marek Halvorsen wrote, "If World War I created the tank, World War II created radar, then the Ukraine war created combat artificial intelligence." 3 years ago, Ukraine only knew how to rely on aid. Now they export warfare technology. Washington no longer just gives, it buys. Sensor drone systems, UAV coordination software, and battlefield data solutions developed by Ukraine. Under President Donald Trump, the U.S. is signing mining and military-industrial agreements directly with Kyiv, transforming Ukraine from aid recipient to strategic partner. Ukraine's autonomous weapons technology is being studied by NATO, Japan, and Israel, while Russia can only desperately imitate. Pokrovsk is not just a battlefield, it's a measure of morale on both sides. Russia is losing both blood and meaning. Ukraine is proving that modern warfare doesn't need human waves, only intelligence and determination. The battle map gradually changes color, but more importantly, the psychological balance has reversed. Russian troops surrender, not from lack of ammunition, but from lack of faith. Meanwhile, Ukrainians fight, not from orders, but from belief in a free future. Human wave tactics are dead, and they died at Pokrovsk. Their death is not just the collapse of a military strategy, but a death knell for Russian imperial thinking. The belief that numbers can cover for intelligence, that fear can replace faith. Ukraine is proving that victory in the 21st century doesn't belong to the stronger, but to the more adaptable.